Hey, welcome back to Cash Flow, where I am accompanying you on your journey from being a founder of a great business to a scalable business. Now, I spent episodes 1 through 4 kind of lecturing on how you need to change if you want the scaling business to succeed. And if that point has gotten across, then you're here to episode 5, which is awesome, because now we're going to dig in and do the work of how do I make it change? How do I make it change without breaking it, right? I got to fly this plane, or this plane has to fly while I'm fixing it, while I'm turning it from a biplane into a jetliner, Boeing 777. I've got to do both things at once. You can't put one down to do the other. And this brings to mind the Eagles this past season. So if you're a Philadelphia fan, you're going to totally get this. The Eagles and Nick Sirianni a year ago today were absolute heroes in the eyes of every hardcore Philadelphian. Go Birds. This year at the same time, it's an angry mob, or there is a contingent that's an angry mob. But the question on the table is real. And one of the questions on the table is real. Is Nick Sirianni the right guy to move us from where we are to the next step? So he made some decisions this season around his staffing that people are questioning. So could be, it's a great analogy. I'm not a Monday morning quarterback, so I don't know the answer to this, but I do know the question is bubbling up in all of the forums everywhere. So here it is. Is Nick the founder? He was exactly the guy to have in place to build us our Super Bowl team that made it to the Super Bowl, that was the underdog, that powered through, that made it happen. Year before that, 2 years before that, they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, didn't win it. Last year, they won it, okay? He was the right guy for that. Is he the right guy for the next step, which is taking a championship team and getting it 3 rings in a row? And that's the question that's on the table, and that's what we've been addressing here, right? But how does he go about making this change? More importantly, how are you going to go about making this change? So we're not going to talk about why you need to change. You know all that. We've been through it. We're going to talk about what to do instead of being a hero in the moment, because that's where people can get stuck. All right. So we're going to go through 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 steps, 3, 4, maybe 5 steps. And literally, you can write these down and do them as we go, or you can print off the PDF at the end of this page, at the end of this episode, that will walk through it with you. So step 1, the point here is we want you to solve something once, capture it forever, okay? What do I mean by that? You can fix a problem. You're going to need to step in and fix problems. That is part of the job, and it's going to stay part of the job. But here's the new rule. You're not allowed to fix the same problem twice without capturing it. And what do I mean by capture, right? It's the first rule, right? You can't solve the same question twice without capturing it. What does it mean? You need to ask these questions. What triggered this problem? Why did it land on me? And what decision had to be made for us to get through it? Okay, it's not a post-mortem, it's not a blaming exercise, it's just capture it. I had to get involved here. What triggered it? Why did it land on me? And what decision had to be made? And here's why that last question is so important. It's step 2. What happened was you had to apply judgment, and you had to apply judgment that somebody else in your organization couldn't apply yet, right? The cool thing about that is when you apply judgment, it's going to be one of 4 types of judgment. I'm going to walk through them really quickly here, because something bubbled up that made you trip into a decision logic that you applied. The business didn't know how to apply it without you, but you applied it. You applied some decision logic in one of these 4 areas of judgment. It was a priority judgment, potentially. You had to decide what mattered most between multiple competing things. Some examples: does a customer issue take precedence over hitting a deadline for something else? Do we go ahead and ship this today even if it's not perfect, or do we wait for perfect? The one that says, hey, this has to get handled now, that has to get handled next. All right, system didn't know how to do that, so you had to jump in and rank it. All right, so that's judgment 1, priority. Judgment 2 is similar, but got a little bit of a different twist to it. It's the trade-off judgment. All right, so when something's brought to you, did you have to decide between 2 different competing, not competing, but opposite sort of objectives, like You had to pick speed versus quality, or margin versus a relationship, or cost versus risk. Okay. Everything was valid, right? Your team knew what the options were, but they didn't know how to apply the trade-off judgment to decide which one won. Okay, so that's two. Number one, priority. Number two, trade-off. Third kind of judgment you had to make is around standards. Okay, it's deciding what good enough looks like. So for some people, good enough is a minimum viable product for some businesses. For some businesses, perfection is what they have to get out the door every single time. Or somebody dies, surgeons, for example, okay? So you need to decide that bar for you. So this was a situation where a question came up and they didn't know, is this good enough? Can I get this out and move on to the next thing? Or do I have to wait until it's better? And these are the questions like, yep, or the answers are going to be something like, yep, this meets our bar. 2, nope, it doesn't meet our standard. And 3, next time you see this, here's how you respond to this situation. This is giving people the values. This is going to be mostly giving people the values so that they can make these sorts of decisions on their own. The system right now, because they had to involve you, didn't know where the bar actually was. Okay? Priority judgment, was it a trade-off judgment, or was it a standard judgment? And here's the fourth one. This is the trickiest because it's the exception judgment. All right? There are times things bubble up to you because there needs to be an exception to the normal rule. All right? Normally we don't do this, but in this case we're going to. You're going to say, hey, this is going to get escalated, the others are not. You're going to say, this is an exception because of X, whatever X might be. An example here is, yep, we're losing money on this customer because they're a distributor that's putting our bottle of sauce in every single store out there, and we're getting visibility for it. So I don't really care that we're losing money because it's actually marketing expense. Okay, it's those kind of things. The system doesn't know when it can break the rules, right? So this is the exception judgment. So why do these matter? When you're pulled into the middle of something, a great way to address it is to think about which of those judgments was required in this particular situation, because then you can design it. If you just document what happened or what the outcome was, you're going to end up just putting tasks in place instead of like building an architecture that can survive, and nothing's going to change. They're going to still need to come back to you because no two problems are going to be exactly the same. You need to teach the organization how to exercise these different judgments, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to convert that judgment into a decision in your head because the organization can make decisions, right? So once you know the type it is it a priority? If it's a priority, create a priority rule. Just create a rule. Maybe it's a decision tree on how to make a decision, how to prioritize things. If it's a trade-off, define some acceptable standards for a trade-off. If it's a standard, define the bar for what needs to be done. If it was an exception you had to deal with, define some escalation criteria so that people know how to deal with that themselves. And here's the thing. You don't want to write a policy manual on this, right? You're going to take one thing you got involved in, you're going to decide which kind of judgment it is, and you're going to create only one really clear artifact that's going to become part of your business. It's going to be a rule, a checklist, some kind of boundary, a decision tree. And here's the biggest rule of all. If it can't be stated simply, it's not going to work, it's not going to scale. So your job is to get it down to something that is very simple to understand. All right, fourth step, we're going to install this architecture now. Because now that you've designed it, if it's still in your head, it's not going to do anybody any good. So what does installation really mean? All right, hard part coming. You got to name an owner. Who's going to own this going forward? And then taking the artifact you just created, the checklist, the decision tree, whatever the heck it was, and getting it to that person and explaining how to do it. And next time this question comes to you, or type of question comes to you, because it'll never be exactly the same, you refer whoever's asking to that artifact. Okay? Now here's something I learned from the guys at Scalable. If you haven't looked them up, it's a pretty incredible education for scaling businesses. And they said a good way to do this is the 1, 2, 3 method. And you can force yourself to be the architect instead of the installer, or instead of the actual doer, by enforcing this method. And it's really, really good. Anybody who comes to you with a question, no matter what that question is, needs to come to you with a very clear statement of the problem. That's one. One very clear statement of the problem. 2, is at least 2 options for solving it. Okay? And 3 is 3 reasons they would pick one of those 2 options if they ruled the world. Okay, let me go through that again. They can bring 1 problem, they have to bring 2 options on how to deal with it, and they have to give 3 reasons for which option they think is best. This thing automatically becomes your architect, or your artifact. They've done the work for you. So throw that in here as a real tip on step number 4. Step number 5, you got to reinforce it. You got to let the system work, and this is so hard. I tell owners this all the time. Like, look, we're putting this system in place. The only way this is going to break now is if you cave. If you cave, it's not going to work. If you cave once, it's not going to work because everybody in the organization is watching you to see if you're going to stand behind this thing. And you need to stand behind it. And if it makes a mistake, if it makes the wrong decision, you teach, you readjust, but you don't jump in and fix it. Okay? You will destroy all the work you've done if you do that. Okay? Now, I had an example here with a client recently. It was impossible to get receipts from all the people out in the field who need to do the work and spend money, right? So we moved them on to a brand new system. That's an amazing system for procurement. Someday, if they want to become a sponsor, I'll share with you what that is. But it now, it pushes accountability out to the individuals in the field, and it makes it really easy to provide a receipt right at the moment you spend money, okay? So the one thing I had to say was, look, we're going to put some things in place so that when they provide that receipt, they say what it was for, they put a job number on it or whatever. People are going to come to you and complain, boss. You need to stand firm. You need to say, hey, we got a system in place, you got to follow it. Not jump in, fix it, and say, skip the system this time. We can handle this. I'll have Mary in accounting take care of it for you. That's where you're going to find your hardest part of the job. That is step 5. Reinforce it and let the system work and accept that it's going to fail a couple times first. And this is a summary of this whole thing, right? We're replacing the hero mode, and the rule is if you've solved it twice, then you've waited too long to design it into the system that's going to make your business grow into something scalable, okay? So here's your action item for this episode. Pick one recurring hero moment, a place you always jump in and fix it. Capture which of the 4 judgments you applied, convert it into one design artifact, and install it with an owner. That's simple. Just one. Don't do 20 yet. Just do one. And guess what? You've just been the most useful you could possibly be to your growing company right now by not solving that problem yourself. Trust me on this. We're going to keep pounding at this. We're going to give you more and more ways to do it effectively. So stick with us for the next episode. If you like this, if you're learning something from it, please click like, subscribe so that you get notice when we do the new episodes. Share it with friends who you might know are going through this particular transition of going from a small, successful business and they're ready to grow it up, or they're in the middle of growing it up, or they've been growing it up, and now that you've been watching it, you're going, they need to hear this. Share it with them for me, would you? Thanks so much. Have a great week, and we will be back next week.